And my grandmother walked in. It's so weird. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Mad Good Knicks show. I'm Far, Steph, TK, Pete here to give you all the Knicks news.
Special edition Nevo Pete.
Guys, DSJ went off for 31 points recently, and game right before that, he went off for 26. Did the Knicks win the Kristaps trade?
Don't forget 8 assists, my favorite stat.
It's too early to tell, but
T.
yeah, absolutely they won. Cause forget KP. Can you bleep this out?
That's all you gotta say? That's all you gotta say?
No, I got a lot more to say.
Well, let's hear it.
Yo, let's take us through the TK journey here, if you will. What happened when you heard about the trade, and then a day later, and now a couple weeks from now?
Were you on the toilet? What happened?
Unfortunately, I was not on the toilet.
Gotcha.
I was at work, and I had received a notification, a Woj bomb, of course, saying that, you know, the Knicks were going to meet with KP. And this was the day after the Mavericks game, where we had just lost at home, and Luka Doncic had a good game. So we were meeting with KP the day after that game. Around noonish, I got that, or I'd say a notification saying that they were going to meet. I thought it was very odd to begin with. I was like, how random is it that they're going to meet with KP in the middle of the season?
Yeah.
You know, what are they going to discuss? So after that, the meeting had transpired. I get another notification saying that KP had demanded a trade. I'm like, oh shit, this can't be great. This is not good. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't have time to do anything. I blinked, I looked back down at my phone, he was gone. He had been traded to the Mavericks. I couldn't believe it. So, I didn't have much time to process it, as I'm sure none of the Knicks fans did. But, man, I was hurt. I was distraught. And the initial thing about the trade was only the players were listed. So I didn't see any draft picks included.
Yeah.
So my blood was boiling. I'm like, how dare we get rid of the franchise player, this, and that. And then come to find out later, it was all KP's fault, and I blame him. I'm 100% on board with the
Well, don't blame KP. You got to throw a little Giannis there.
Oh, yeah. 100% Giannis.
Yeah,
But which one is it?
A little too much.
Well,
Not Antetokounmpo, guys, right?
yeah.
No.
Not Antetokounmpo.
We need
Giannis
clarification
Porzingis.
here.
Which, by the way, weren't you saying the Greek Freak is back as a fan favorite?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's no animosity towards
There's no longer any guilt in liking the Greek
I
Freak.
think KP saw how fast Giannis was progressing. He's like, I got to get out of the East. Like, This is no place for me.
For sure. But
I got to
no,
go
you're
play
right,
with the
man.
old guys.
I blame KP and Giannis, but KP for following his brother, like he literally blew that shit up real quick. And then, of course, you guys heard the rumors and the stories that preceded the trade. But what do you guys think?
I'm very happy at the end of the day, mainly because of everything that came out after the fact.
Yeah.
And if you guys haven't already done so, go check out our last video. Pete, Steph, and myself, we kind of broke down the immediate reaction, but other stuff has transpired. You guys in particular, both of you, even initially, were like, I think this is a good move.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, there wasn't much time to process it. Like TK said, I think between the time we shared the rumors in our group chat and the trade happened, it was like 10-15 minutes. So
Yeah,
it was
for real.
kind of
45 to be exact.
So,
I'm not even joking about that.
Oh,
It's
okay,
45
wow.
minutes.
All right.
Note that down,
So
guys.
I guess it felt like 10-15, but 45 is pretty fast given how long a lot of these other
And we
trade
were at
proceedings.
work.
It's
So,
2x time of a dump.
I liked it just because it was about as great of a combination of trade possibilities that you could get. We got players back, we got rid of contracts, we got picks, we got cap space, and all that for KP, who wasn't going to play this year. We didn't know how he was going to play in the future.
And the main thing, he didn't want to play in New York.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people say, okay, the Knicks never get free agents, blah, 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 but like, to me, it was as much of a risk to wait for KP to play out. Not only because he might not have been as good coming back, but I feel like a lot of other free agents were waiting to see how.
Yeah.
So the other side of the equation here
to
is, Pete, to your point, what we get back in return, and TK, you mentioned this too, and that's cap space.
Yeah.
Now we're essentially banking on the fact that 2 free agents will sign here. I was sitting, I sat and spoke to a reporter from the Dallas Mavericks, lives in Dallas, was a fan. Now he reports for them, and he told me it's gonna be tougher than it seems for the Knicks, mainly because they're the Knicks. And regardless of the fact that we as Knicks fans know that James Dolan hasn't touched this franchise outside of hiring and firing Phil Jackson the last 3 years, every other player still knows that James Dolan is here.
Hey, stick to reporting on your own damn team.
Yeah, but
it's an interesting perspective because it's from the outside looking in.
No,
you
I
naturally have to expect that's how free agents feel.
I understand.
Right.
I think they've turned a new leaf, though. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's
I
the thing for
absolutely
me.
agree with
Like
that.
turning the new leaf in a sense
But
that
perception is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, perception definitely has something to do with it. But for me, it's like it's been a long time since we've had a lot of free space, a lot of like moving parts that we can kind of manipulate and sculpt. The organization has done a great job with keeping the core, which is what they promised in the beginning. Now we have a chance to kind of puzzle piece, and there's a lot of free agents going on. There's a lot of drama going on in the NBA. So for the first time, I feel confident in the uncertainty. You know, for the past years, we always felt like impatient because there were certain moves that happened and they were so exact and so strategic, but like we didn't like the moves at all. We were like, oh, there's another season of, you know, dealing with this player or that player. But now the fact that everything is kind of open and for us to decide and for the organization to decide, I have my trust in this organization now. I think Scott Perry, I think Steve Mills have done an incredible job so far. They're making the right moves, that they're keeping options open, and that's all I want as a Knicks fan.
How fast things were cut.
How fast things were cut, and that's
I wanna
great.
touch on that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
The beauty of it is, and I think you have to look at this objectively as a Knicks fan. The beauty of it, from the standpoint of Scott Perry and Steve Mills, they have completely removed all elements of emotion behind every single move that we made.
Very
There's
well
no
said.
more feel-good stories here with the
That's
Knicks.
the best part.
You know, and we've seen this previously with other regimes and other management. We've had every move we made has had a lot of emotion involved into it. There's a lot of been, you know, a lot of it has been
Like hesitant, right?
hesitant because,
or reluctant
you know,
to
we
do
don't
something.
want to reluctant. We don't want to. This is a good player. This is a franchise player. We want to kind of schmooze it over, and a lot of this would have prolonged in the past before.
I agree.
You know, KP demanded a trade. We would have held on to him and see what we could have done to make him happy and want to stay.
Exactly.
There was no changing his mind. If he wants to go, he wants to go.
Trade for everything they did for the Knicks organization. When we went into this trade deadline and we knew we were potentially going to do something, we knew there were three things that had to happen for the franchise if we were going to move Kristaps. We wanted to get a rookie player that was still in his scale contract. We wanted to add additional draft picks to the draft picks we currently have, and then give ourselves financial flexibility that we could become a player in free agency, but just a chance to have the flexibility to move forward.
So they said, okay, you want to go? Good riddance.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah,
cleaned that
facts,
slate really quick, so I got to commend them for what they've done, how fast they executed that, because I think that was crucial. We didn't hear any trade rumors at all. And think about how detrimental, speaking of trade rumors, detrimental to a team it can be, i.e. the Lakers, how detrimental that whole thing was to them, you know, and I know they just won recently, but those players looked dejected in the locker room, so I didn't want that to affect our young Knicks, especially because we're going to ride these guys to the very end. They said they were untouchable. They've even proved their belief in Frank, which, you know, we're still trying to figure that out, but they held on to Frank. So that says something about the core.
Maybe as a trade asset, but whatever the case may be.
I love what you're saying about the emotion
Just
part.
3 quick points.
So
One
true.
to your point on emotion. I think the critical emotion here that we're not succumbing to is fear.
Yeah.
I think maybe the Knicks brass in the past has been under a lot of pressure to make quick moves, and they're not the smartest moves all the time. But this time, I think they're actually being patient. Even though it seems like we cut KP quickly, this is actually a patient move because it plays out over a long period of time, and we can be strategic about it. 2, I think, and I still see a lot of fans saying this was a terrible trade. We shouldn't have got rid of our star player. Have you been paying attention? Like, he didn't want to be here.
He got rid of us. What do you mean? We didn't get rid of anybody.
His brother and him wanted too big a piece of the organization that I don't think they were ready for yet, that they hadn't earned.
Yeah,
it was very strange. It was a conflict of interest. And 3, I want to take back a little bit of all that trouble we gave to Phil Jackson for wanting to trade KP, because he had a little bit of a point. And, you know, to our credit, though, we always say that we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. There could be something we don't know. And I think we learned recently that there were some things we didn't know. And so some decisions that looked bad in the past look better now. And that makes me feel better as a fan.
just want to touch on that Phil Jackson thing when he wanted to get when he wanted to get rid of KP way back when. That deal would have been for Devin Booker, right?
Oh yeah.
And Lauri Markkanen. We would have drafted Lauri Markkanen. So in retrospect, I mean, knowing what we know now about KP and Giannis, that deal would have looked pretty damn good.
Oh, yeah.
And also, just one more thing about how Knicks fans are suggesting. Can I keep on? Hey, you guys did a whole segment, all right? I'm trying to get some stuff off my chest.
We gotta give me 5 minutes of fame, or 35 minutes, whatever. it is.
Oh damn! You got that much? Let me roll it out here. So no, but a lot of Knicks fans feel like, you know, like ourselves, we felt like this was a rash, a very quick decision made. You know, they pulled the trigger really quick, but this is all part of their plan. They didn't unveil their plan to us, but they had a plan in place. Yeah. Plan A was, you know, to build around. KP was the future. He was going to be our staple, and we're going to do everything we can to surround him with talent, right? Plan B was...
So we think.
So that's what they said, right? I honestly think...
TK, hashtag stay woke.
You're right. I honestly think that's part of...
Yeah, what's that about?
But that's them saving face. I don't think Plan A was dealt with KP long-term to begin with. I thought they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. But from a business standpoint, it makes complete sense. So I can't be mad at what they did. They didn't want to pay him long-term coming off an injury like that. And they didn't want to play him this season. Yeah. They didn't want to let it... You know, unfortunately, if he gets injured, we wouldn't be able to trade him, so on and so forth, or sign him to this huge deal. But I think,
and what's up with KP being pissed off not playing for the Knicks this season,
but not even
totally cool with it with Dallas not playing.
Yeah,
this season.
I think he just didn't want to be here. I think the relationship was ruined, and he didn't want to be here. The real plan A, I think, was to have KP. You know, sign a contract in the offseason after we had already signed a free agent. You know, we were going to try to go over the cap to sign him, and that was going to be our initial plan.
I think it was going to be having him sign the qualifying offer.
For 1 year?
And then having him play alongside a superstar and a guy like Zion next year. I think
with the risk of losing him?
That also shook him because he's like, how am I going to prove myself when there's a guy like Zion and a potential superstar playing right next to me? I'm not getting max money that way.
There's also that as well.
But then we don't need you as a Knicks player, right?
Right.
I mean,
I just think they executed. If I can grade this trade right now, despite what happens in the summer in free agency, I'll grade this trade an A- right now, just for the mere fact we have 7 first-round picks in the next 5 years, and I think those type of trade assets, we've seen the Celtics do it, we've seen the Sixers do it. You end up winning. Both of those teams are front runners in the Eastern Conference. Right?
Yeah, and I think
they had nothing at one point.
I also think that like KP, I mean, he's a great player. You know, he's all-star caliber. But the fact that he's actually missed close to 100 games in the last 3 years, that he's missed over a season in the last 3 years, that's a big deal. It's a third of your career you've missed. And the fact that I think it's just overblown, like Lonzo Ball said Magic Johnson is just a face. I'm starting to think that KP, until he proves me wrong otherwise, is just like a figure on a unicorn that we've kind of blown out of proportion, especially in the New York media. And we have yet to see him prove it. They're fake?
No one's ever seen a unicorn before, yeah.
He's got a lot to prove. I want to wrap it up with getting your guys' take on a little bit more.
I just want to touch on one more.
a little bit more on the media aspect of this, because media controls a lot of what the New York Knicks, unfortunately, are surrounded by.
Yeah.
So the fact that the trade was done so quickly, the fact that the New York Knicks are smart enough to take control of a situation before it leaked out to the press, before other teams were like, well, you guys don't have leverage anymore because the kid wants to leave you anyway. So you got to take what's on the table. The fact that all of that happened, we got to give also some credit.
Not just, but there's another layer to that. Giannis Porzingis came into that meeting with a list of 4 teams that KP was willing to... Janet, whatever your name is, bro. We don't like you anymore. Fuck off. So he came in with a list of 4 teams that KP was willing to sign an extension with, none of them being the Knicks. So that pushed the Knicks into a corner already. They had already had a handshake deal with the Mavericks prior to this meeting that they didn't want to agree to because they wanted to hear Giannis out first before that. So Giannis came in, listed as 4 teams, 2 of the teams being the Clippers and the Nets. The Knicks kind of panicked because they were like, oh shit, the Dallas Mavericks isn't on that list. And if we mention that to him, he's going to say, I'm not going there, and then Dallas is going to stay clear of that trade, and they're not going to pull the trigger. So after that, they immediately called Dallas up and said, you got a deal. We're sending Porzingis for DSJ, and so on and so forth. So, you know, kudos to the Knicks again. We got to give credit where credit is due. We haven't seen trades or just a handling of our players in this type of fashion since I can remember as being a fan.
It felt good to be in the media.
It felt good.
This is the only time where I agree with like lack of transparency, because it was a strategic move to not be transparent and do things behind closed doors. But I know we've been shitting on. Sorry, my nose is running. I apologize, guys. But there's one good thing about. I mean, we've been shitting on the Porzingis family, but at least they came to the Knicks like with 4 teams, and at least they were straight up about it. That's great.
I have no problem with his mom, dad, and the other brother.
Yeah, you're right.
It's Janice.
It's the 2. But you know what I'm saying? Like, at least they came forward with like, all right, I'm not feeling this team. These are the 4 teams. What can you do for me? It'd be better than just kind of, you know, we've seen players in the past just kind of hide behind closed doors, sulk, not communicate with the team. And KP was kind of going in that direction, leaving the exit meeting, but at least he showed some balls in the end and kind of left as a man.
This goes without saying.
No,
you know, this is the underlying point of this
stay
trade.
woke.
Stay woke.
Well, how else would you like them to leave?
That's not that manly to give innuendo and be like, oh, the truth will come out. If you're a man, you like.
But they said it's been a few months brewing. Like, I'm sure there were talks about that.
I think to clarify that, I think
because he missed practice, like he wasn't showing up anymore.
No, the exit meeting was a bitch move. The exit meeting, I hated.
This is the equivalent to like ghosting on a female. He was ghosting on his team, and then the team
that's
realized,
the exit
I gotta cut my
Pete has
losses.
been mentioning this for the longest, but the fact that Porzingis wasn't seen in the media, he wasn't seen in practice. He wasn't with the team.
He wasn't in interviews.
Yeah.
We didn't see any footage of him. There was like that discrepancy between him and Fizdale as to his status. There was all these like red flags that I kind of chalked up to like, it's the Knicks. Maybe they just suck. But like now in retrospect, it all makes sense. And it makes me feel better about the Knicks. And I think we should be clear. The trade happened quickly as far as when they saw an opportunity to strike.
Yeah.
But they were fielding trade potential and offers for KP for a while.
Who? It was AD. They were trying
to get
De'Aaron Fox. Was it
so all those teams.
I think that makes it even more impressive because they were able to do that behind the scenes. And I think even at that point, it was clear that it wasn't going to work out between them and KP. And I think that once the opportunity came up and they realized it, you know, it was kind of like the teams got together. Don Nelson was in town.
Yeah.
And it was, and they just did it. And it was, to me, well thought out because you know why I think it was an excellent trade?
What?
Because they always say a great compromise is when both sides are unhappy. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I feel like in this case, both sides are happy.
Right.
So it's great. I think Dallas is so happy to have KP, and we're happy in a way to have that headache off our mind. And then all
and the underrated aspect of this trade is the unloading of all those contracts. TSJ, Courtney Lee.
You know how we feel about you, bro, but you just weren't the right fit for this team. Your contract was
and we wanted to get rid of them for the longest time. And you remember a few months ago we've been hearing like TSJ, Courtney Lee on the trade block, and that's when those talks were happening probably. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And you know what's funny also, really quick, I know we keep bringing this up, but you were saying in retrospect it makes sense a lot of the things. Dude, KP has been subbing us for a minute.
Yes.
And we kind of just let it, you know, go. We slipped it under the rug, but we should have taken more notice. You guys remember when he wrote LA Clippers and put the smiley face? He tweeted that out and then said, oh, he was hacked? Dude, LA Clippers was one of those teams that he said he would
Damn, in hindsight, he just looks like an asshole.
Yeah.
That's
Dude,
so true. I forgot about that.
He trolled Fizdale when Fizdale said, you know, no, Porzingis isn't ready yet. They're all trying to keep all this under wraps. Yeah. Porzingis goes 5 minutes later, post him on Twitter jogging.
You know why? Now I get it.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to stay valuable for the trade world.
We wanted to keep him down here.
And all this time I thought it was Fizdale not caring, but he went to Latvia to see him.
Dude, isn't that the crazy thing? Because when this all unfolded, we were wondering, we were like, wow, how come the Knicks doesn't have more insight?
We gotta have a segment on KP.
It was him.
It was KP the whole time.
It was you.
It was you, dude. How messed up is that? He said, oh no, I was hacked.
Yo, shout out to Rumors this time for actually
coming through.
Seriously, word.
Shout out to Rumors.
We see you, beat writers. All right, guys. So let us know what you think in the comments. This was kind of the the rationale behind the trade and what
Consensus,
the mad
we're
good
all
take
happy
is.
about the trade.
I think that's fair to
All
say.
happy.
I think that's definitely fair to say. Let us know. Follow us on Instagram. Hit us up on Twitter at MadGoodKS. Holla.
At ya.
Peace.
Boy.
Let's run that back.